Hello everyone, Seraphin here. I'm gonna do something a little unorthodox today. I decided to pick up something that I've been looking to get for a very long time, and I figured I would share it with the rest of you and see what you think also. So, what I have here is the Fire Emblem Cipher card game. This is only available in Japan, hence the Japanese packaging and the Japanese cards that I actually don't know how to read. However, the cards in this game are phenomenally made, and the artwork on all these is original and also incredible. So I decided to pick some up just to have some because they look really cool and they're a nice collector's piece. And there are translations for a lot of the cards available online because some people are very nice and did that. So I might try to learn to see if I can play the game too, just for kicks and giggles. So what I have here is the Series 2 starter deck. This is from the Fire Emblem Awakening set. So you see Chrom is featured here on the front. He's the main character from Awakening. I also picked up the Path of Radiance starter deck, and that's got Ike on it. But I'm going to open these up and give you guys a look and see what you think. So let me just crack this open real quick. And there's 50 cards for each of these starter decks, so I've got 100 cards here to pull out altogether. And of course, this packaging is got a lot of tape all over the back side of it. I haven't had a chance to play with this much, so you're seeing this for the first time, and so am I. I'll just kind of pull that off here. I'll set that aside for now. And here are the cards themselves. Let me throw that away. And as you can see, this is Chrom as a Great Lord from Fire Emblem Awakening here. It's a foil card, as you can probably tell from the light refraction everywhere here. And there's this little strip holding all the cards together, so we're just going to go through and take a look real quick. So, obviously we've got Chrom here. I don't know if he's the only foil in this deck. No, it does not look like he is, so we're going to set Chrom right there. This looks like it is Muriel from Awakening. These are all going to be from Awakening. This is the Awakening starter deck, so we got a foil Muriel. Looks like she's a sage in this picture. Maybe she's just a mage, I can't tell. We'll set her aside for a minute. We've got a different Chrom. Looks like just in his regular base Lord class. That's pretty sweet. And this one's foil also. I think there's a handful of foils in this one. Here we have good old Frederick, the Great Lord, or not Great Lord, Great Knight, rather, that you start with. And he looks pretty darn awesome. Let's see what else we got here. I'm not wearing gloves or anything. I'm not one of those purists that wears gloves when I'm looking at the cards. Like, I don't plan on keeping mint versions of these or anything. But here we have, looks like Sully, also as a Great Knight. That's pretty sweet. I'm noticing that a lot of the classes have very similar stats here. And this looks like Stahl, also as a Great Knight, if I'm not mistaken. It's pretty easy to tell he's a green dude on a horse. I know I haven't played Awakening on the channel just yet. It might be one of those things that I get to eventually. It's really fun, but it's also a very deep game. So there were the 6 foils. We've got Chrom, Muriel, different Chrom, Frederick, Sully, and Stahl, and here we got the not foil cards in the deck here. Looks like we got more copies of that Great Lord Chrom here. Looks like 4 altogether. And here we have, why is this card blank? I don't understand. There's nothing on this one. Oh well. Actually, there's 3 blank cards. That's kind of unusual. I guess we'll just set those aside for the time being. And here we have, looks like Vake from Awakening. He is a fighter, if I'm not mistaken. He might be actually a warrior in this picture. It's kind of hard to tell. But like I said, this artwork is just absolutely phenomenal. And it's all original. You'll never see any of this outside of these cards. Anything that looks remotely like this at any rate. Here we've got more of that Sage Muriel. This is a non-foil one. Looks pretty darn good. And this looks like Rickon. He's another mage from Awakening. He's the younger one. He's probably my favorite one, actually. Out of between him and Muriel, I prefer him. And there's 2 copies of him in here. And here is that other different Chrom. Just one more copy of him. I imagine this is like I read a little bit about the rules of this game. There's like a base level hero that you have to pick as your main character, and they have to have a cost of 1 up here. So I believe this Crom is intended to be used as like a main character for your deck. And this looks like Lucina. Yes, this is Lucina. And it looks like they tend to feature Lucina's left eye more prominently in this kind of artwork because where her Exalt brand is at. And there's a couple of copies of her in here. Very cool artwork. And here we have, looks like female Robin as a Grandmaster, I'm going to assume. It's a really cool animation. That's some really... I wish the spell animations looked anywhere near that cool in Awakening. Unfortunately, they're all exactly the same and a little bit generic, and it's a little sad. We'll set her right here. And here's different female Robin. This is a lower ranking one, so probably just her as a basic tactician. Again, with the really cool animation coming out of the book here, I wish... You can tell from the leaves coming off, it looks like a wind spell. I wish the magic animation was this cool in Awakening. We'll just kind of set her down here. This looks like... this is Lissa as a war cleric. That's kind of funny. She's got all this armor on and she's got this big old axe. That's hilarious. I like Lissa quite a bit, actually. We'll set her over here. And there's Lissa as a cleric instead of her beat stick form. There's a few copies of her as that, looks like here. These are really cool. And then we've got more Frederick, non-foil this time. Just one more of him. And this looks like Virion, I believe, as a sniper, I'm going to assume. Generally speaking, what I notice from these is when you see two numbers up here in the top left, there's the base blue one, and then there's a white one below it. That means they're a promoted class. Because you can play them as they are for that cost, but then if you upgrade them from an existing one, you can use the white number instead. So they're a little cheaper if you upgrade from an existing card rather than playing them base, but you can do either. I haven't played the game yet, but I'm going to try to learn and see if I can give it a try. And this looks like, yeah, you can see this one just has a base cost, so this must be Virion as just a regular archer. Not a fan of Virion, honestly. He's kind of he's not a very good character in Awakening, unfortunately. But I guess to each their own. If you like Virion, then leave a comment, I suppose. But here we have more of Sully as a Great Knight. I'm going to assume she's a Great Knight because she has the armored horse, the heavily armored horse, and the shield on her arm. Oh yeah, definitely, because here's regular Cavalier Sully. It's probably the most effeminate-looking Sully I've ever seen. She tends to not look quite that girly, I guess, in Awakening. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose, but Sully's alright. I think Stahl's better, overall, but they're both really good units. Awakening has the nice thing about not having any bad characters. They're all really usable and good, even Virion if you really want to. And here's more Great Knight Stahl. This one looks a little more animated than his usual self. He's normally very laid back and tired and hungry all the time. This one looks like he's ready to kill somebody. And then here we've got Cavalier Stahl. This one looks a little more like him. The half-open eyes, the tired look on his face. If you haven't played Awakening, I highly recommend it. That's the reason why Fire Emblem became so popular in the West all of a sudden. I mean, it's been around in here since 2003, but nobody really played it until Awakening. Awakening's what really hit the series off in a new stride, and here is Sumiya as a Pegasus Knight, I believe. This is Crom's canon wife, I believe, and well, she's the one he's most likely to marry at any rate. The reason why Awakening is so popular is because they put literally everything they could into it. They packed it full of features. It was voice acted for the first time. Really high production value, and it was actually supposed to be the last in the series if it didn't sell well. But because it sold so well, it's kind of exploded in the recent years, and I'm really happy about that. This looks like Longku as a Swordmaster, if I'm not mistaken. That was some really slick artwork, actually. I like that quite a bit. Just one copy of him as a Swordmaster, and then here you have, looks like Longku as a Myrmidon. Still really cool. The way he's holding that sword is really sweet. Here's a few copies of that in here. It looks like here we have Maribel. I don't know if she's a Valkyrie or... No, she must be a Troubadour at this point, because I don't see a promoted cost on her, so... It's some pretty interesting art. Looks like she has the typical anime-style eyes in this one. Definitely okay with that. And then down here we have Cordelia, or Cordelia, I guess, how you ever pronounce it, as a Pegasus Knight. That's pretty interesting art. And then looks like that's the end of that. So that's the 60 or the 50 card deck for Awakening. And then this is just kind of at the end here. I'm not sure what this is. These are the back of the cards, by the way. So that is pretty darn sweet. This 0 here is supposed to indicate, like you can see it says TCG Fire Emblem Cipher, or it's abbreviated as Fire Emblem 0. I'm not sure why it's a 0 and not a cipher, but at any rate, there's just this card in the back, kind of taken up. And that's really cool. I like this a lot. But the back of these cards are beautiful. I love the artwork on these guys. So that is the Awakening deck. So let's move on to the Path of Radiance one. I'm actually a little more excited for that one. Ike is my favorite character, and Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are my favorite games in the series, so definitely looking forward to this one. So here we have it, the outside of this box. You see Ike as a Lord prominently featured on the front. And I don't know if you can tell, but the different cards from different games are color-coded, so all of the Awakening ones have a blue border and have a little blue symbol on the corner, and the Path of Radiance, I guess the Tellius-themed games, that's the continent it takes place on, are green. So all of these cards will have a green border on them. And outside the packaging looks almost exactly the same, just a different color. And I'm sure these are like the card listings on the back here, but again, I can't read Japanese, so I really wish I could. It's one of those languages that I would love to learn if I had the time and the patience, but I'm told it is not easy for people who it's not their first language to learn. And I don't have a lot of patience already, so I can't imagine that being all that effective. It's not that I'm not that I'm against the idea of learning a new language, but it would require a tremendous effort on my part, and I don't have the time, frankly, to sit in a class and learn, so I would need to learn by myself. I think French or German would be fun to learn too, and those are a little easier, I bet. Alright, now looks like the sticker's coming off with the back here. That's alright, it's just paper. Put that aside for now, and I'll get these cards out of here. Okay, so here we have Ike, arguably my favorite Fire Emblem character, one of them at any rate. This is a very shiny foil Ike as a Lord from Path of Radiance. Let's get this little sleeve off of here, and we'll start taking a look. Man, the artwork on these is just absolutely... I know I've said that 1,000 times, but every time I look at these, I'm reminded just how incredible this art is on these cards. And that's one of the foils in here. Let's set him aside for now. Here, this looks like Princess Elincia from Path of Radiance. I'm going to assume... Actually, this might be Queen Elincia by this point, because she's a promoted unit. But I'm not sure, because technically Elincia is considered promoted in Path of Radiance, too, when you get her. At any rate, it is Elincia, whether she's Princess or Queen, we're not really sure. One of my favorite characters also. And here we have, this looks like Ike's father, Grail, wielding his awesome double battle axe, which I love. And if you're familiar with Fire Emblem Heroes at all, or have played that, there is a variant of Ike in that game where he's dressed as his father and using his axe, and it looks incredible. So there's Ike's dad as a shiny foil card. His class is a hero, by the way, I believe. And this looks like Mist, Ike's little sister, as a Valkyrie. That's pretty darn cool. She has a really neat-looking sword there with a basket hilt. I like that a lot. I don't think she gets anything quite that cool in the game that she's from. I'm just going to set her over here. And this is Soren, looks like. Yep, Soren as a sage, I believe. Really, really cool looking. Looks like he's just coming straight at you with his wind magic there. Soren's one of my favorite mages also, and I like the Tellius series in general, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. They're my favorite games. Not just because of the story, but the characters are all incredible in that game. And then finally it looks like Titania here. Titania, that's how I pronounce it, Titania, but she is a paladin and is otherwise amazing and awesome. And the red hair does not hurt. Alright, that's the last of the foils here for this deck. And here we get some non-foil variants of Ike as a Lord here. It still looks really stinking cool. It looks like he's holding Ragnell in his hand there. I can't really tell, but the top right corner here, that starburst or that sunburst of light, and I can't really tell what sword he's using, but it looks like Ragnell. And we'll set him right there. And here's more of Elincia. It's a promoted unit, but I don't see the base form of her, so I guess this could be either her princess or her queen form. So, and here's more of Grail. He also does not have a not promoted form, but he wouldn't anyway because he doesn't. You don't ever get to see him that way. And here's more of Mist as a Valkyrie, the non-foil variant. And here we have non-foil Soren. Still looking pretty darn cool. Oh, here we go. We get into the other stuff now. So here is Ike, unpromoted as a ranger, right when you first get him in Path of Radiance. He has the regal sword there, it appears. I love Ike as a ranger. So cool. And then we'll move on to... Oh, here we go. This is Alincia. This looks like... I'm not sure what she's doing here. It looks like she has a healing stave, maybe? She's in her princess dress when you first encounter her. You don't actually get to use her as a staff unit in that game, so this is kind of an this is new a little bit, actually. I wonder what her class is. I have to get that translated and find out what it says. And speaking of clerics, we have Mist as an unpromoted cleric. She also just uses a staff instead of a sword. And here we have non-foil Titania. Still looks really darn cool. And that first Soren must have been a Sage, because this looks like unpromoted Soren as a Wind Mage. Looks like that wind of his just slashing through the air. I love that. Very cool artwork. And let's move on to, looks like Oscar as a Paladin. Looks like they decided to give him a bow upon promotion. He's got a quiver on his back, so that makes sense, I guess. Still has a really cool looking lance in his hands, though. Oscar, I kind of have a love-hate relationship. Sometimes he turns out really great when I play through this game. Other times he turns out garbage. And this looks like Oscar as a Cavalier, still with a lance. Pretty darn cool. And then we get, instead of Oscar, his younger brother Boyd. Boyd as a warrior, I'm going to guess. He's got the fur tufts on his shoulder there. Boyd is pretty darn solid. He's the only warrior you get in Path of Radiance, so it's a good thing that he's usable. Otherwise, it'd be pretty sad. And then looks like Boyd as a fighter. This is great. He's just swinging his axe around wildly. That's awesome. I like Boyd quite a bit, actually. He's not quite as good as Ike, but he's pretty darn close. And then last, we get the youngest of the three brothers. This is Rolf as a, I'm going to guess, a sniper. Rolf tends to be hit or miss for me as well, just like Oscar. He either turns out great or he turns out garbage, and unfortunately he requires a lot of investment to make good, since he starts such a low level in Path of Radiance. But if I ever play through that on the channel, I'll explain more about the characters and how they work in that game. And then this looks like Rolf as an archer. Young, bright-eyed, and innocent, and probably terrible, unfortunately for him. He's alright, though. He tends to turn out better than his competition in Path of Radiance if you put the effort into him. This is Riss. He is a bishop, or a cleric. He might just be a cleric in this one, although he is holding a light tome, so... he's a priest in Path of Radiance, kind of like Mist, but the male equivalent, I guess. Not sure why priests and clerics are different. I mean, it's perfectly viable to have a male cleric, I guess, but if you play D&D or any such. So a lot of healers in this deck, I'm noticing. This looks like Gatry as a knight, an armored knight. He looks a lot thinner than I'm used to seeing him as, actually, but that's okay. He's got a lot of armor on still. That's cool. Gatry's one of my favorite armor knights in the series. Besides Oswin and Fire Emblem 7, he's probably my favorite one, but Gatry's up there as well. This looks like Marcia as a Falcon Knight. A promoted character. That's basically a promoted Pegasus Knight. And then this looks like her as just a regular Pegasus Knight here. I like Marcia quite a bit, actually. She's pretty darn solid. She's not quite as good as I think, like Florina from Fire Emblem 7, but she's pretty darn good in her own right, nonetheless. And then this here, oh, look at this. We get Lagoo's characters. So in Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, there are characters that can shapeshift into animals. And this is one of them. This is Lathe, I believe. She is a cat. Yes, she's a cat girl. I get it. I don't know why it says she's got a cavalry affinity here. She's not on horseback or anything. She just kind of transforms into a cat. So that's pretty cool looking, though. I like that quite a bit. I wonder if Mordecai's in here, too. Looks like 3 different copies of Lathe here. And nope, this is not Mordecai. However, this is my favorite character from Path of Radiance. This is Nephany as a halberdier, it looks like. And that looks kind of dark, actually. It looks like she's like might be possessed or something almost. That's pretty crazy looking artwork there. And then is there, yep, here's unpromoted Nephany. Looks like by the same artist. This is her as a simple soldier with a lance. But I love Nephany. She constantly tops out my highest kill counts in Path of Radiance when I play through that game. She's incredible. And that looks like the end of that. So here's the that little end card at the end there, just like the Awakening box had. And I'm not sure what these are supposed to be, but they look really cool, and I'm going to save these. So anyway, that's the 2 starter decks that I picked up. I think there's 10 of them altogether now. There's one for just about every series. So for example, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are 2 different games, but they're from the same series, so they're both going to be the green bordered ones. There's Blazing Sword and Binding Blade 6 and 7. Those are from the same continent. And I think they actually lumped in Sacred Stones with those 2 as well. And those are all 1 color. The original Shadow Dragon, not the original Shadow Wraith, the original Dark Dragon and Sword of Light. The very first Fire Emblem is 1 continent, and so is its sequel, Mystery of the Emblem. And Gaiden is also mixed in there somewhere. But basically, if it's on the same continent, they'll have the same color of cards. I think there's 6 or 7 different colors. The exception being if you've played Fates, there is a separate color for Hoshido and for Nor. There's white for Hoshido and black for Nor, but even though they're on the same continent. In fact, no one really knows what the name of that continent is. But that's how you distinguish the decks from each other. I think when you build a deck, you need to have 1 color. So you kind of pick what game or what continent you're going to play what characters from, and you just use those ones. So there's 10 different starter decks, 1 for each color at least. Might be duplicates for another one, but at any rate, that's just 2 of them. I'm probably going to pick up more of these if I like it. I'm going to try it out and see if it's any fun, but I like having these just for the cards, honestly, at this point. Like I said, the art is phenomenal, as you can see. And I might try to learn if I can see if I can play this, find some convenient way to translate the cards so it's not so tedious, but we'll get to that when we get there. What's also included in these little starter boxes here, this came in the back of the packaging. This looks like a playmat of some sort, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go ahead and unfold this because now I'm curious. It's just regular old like paper, but yeah, this looks like a playmat. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not entirely familiar with how this game works, but it looks like you've got 2 different fighting zones in the front there. You've got like a resource row on the bottom. Looks like your deck and a discard pile. I'm not sure what the top area there is for or what this little side area is for over there. Once I learn more about the game, I might see if I can put together something on it, but I guess we'll get there when I get there. So there's one of these in both of the starter boxes, one of these little playmats. And then there's also, I'm not sure entirely what this is. Looks like maybe a little advertisement. There's a code on it, actually. I'm not sure what that's all about. Maybe I'll look into seeing what that is. And then we've got, this looks like the rule book for the game. Regrettably, it is all in Japanese, so I won't be able to learn it from just reading this, but I'll find some way to get a translated edition of it or something. I'm sure there's one of those online somewhere. But yeah, I really wish this game was in English, or released in America, because it'd be easier to get my hands on, first of all. But also, just looks phenomenal, and there's a lot of Western Fire Emblem fans that I'm sure would love to play this game. And myself included, obviously. But until that time, I'm going to take a little closer look at these and see if I can find out more. But if I pick up any more of these, I will be sure to share them with you guys. Let me know if you liked this, and if you want to see more of these little unboxing videos, I'll do more of them if you like them. Until that time, though, I'm going to go check out my new cards and kind of play around with them a little bit. But until the next time I see you guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Let me know if you liked this video, if you want see more of them. But regardless, I will see you in the next playthrough. So have a good night.